Well, as promised, here we are. Good morning. It's hard to believe. Today is the 10th of February, 2020. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome as you come in. And we had, I think, a little bit of fun last night with some information on the live stream that I did last night. And as I mentioned, I needed to come on again today for a couple of reasons. And hopefully we get some good news today or tomorrow, or at least sometime this week, about the anticipation of some arrests. And we talked about that last night, that there was a statement made on Twitter by Greg Rubini explaining that this was going to happen. And then I said that I got some other information that questioned that, and that it's more likely that declassifications are going to come out. But either way, hopefully we move forward, because the world is getting crazy and they're trying to distract us so that we don't ask the right questions. Because as I've long said, the intelligence community is our most dangerous domestic enemy, and in fact the most dangerous enemy in the world today. And the people that are there and the people that control them will destroy everything rather than lose power. So make sure that we keep our attention on what's going on, get our supplies together so that we can remain independent if we need to. So that was kind of a long introduction. I probably shouldn't have done that again, but I'm finding it more and more important that I remind people about where the real problem is. Not that all human beings can't be a problem. Boy, I'm got a dry throat. Hold on a second. Yes, I do have my coffee this morning. It's not caramel cream. They don't have any here, and I forgot to bring mine. But the coffee's still good. I know you don't like me to slurp, but man, I drink it really hot. Let's see if I can do it without slurping. I don't know if I can. It's hard because when you slurp it a little bit, it cools it off. People that don't drink coffee, maybe you don't know that. Lionel, I like the way he does it. He has a huge cup, but I think mine would get cooled off before I was able to get down very far. Okay, why did I call this the Red Dragon? Well, I think that's pretty much self-explanatory just in the title. What we're seeing happening in China, the way it's treating its people. Don't kid yourselves. I've seen our government treat our people in the same way. It's a little more difficult for our government to treat people like that, because even though our mainstream media is pretty much run by the government, by the intelligence community in particular, and the FCC, it's still a little difficult. And as you've seen in the images coming out of China, everybody has a cell phone now. I haven't quite figured out why these broadcasts, these streams coming from China exist. From the government side, I was thinking maybe they were hacked, but we're seeing others that are coming out. And I'm frankly surprised. Why hasn't China shut down the cell phone towers? Are these recordings that people are recording on their phone and then getting someplace where they can upload them? If they are trying to get around the censorship, I laud them, and it shows the tyranny and the difficulties that the Chinese people experience in any regard. That's the case. We know about, for instance, the bodies, and I've mentioned this before, the bodies exhibit that was going around the world. If you remember, it was bodies that were basically dissected in different layers, and they were showing muscles and skeletons and nerves, and people were flocking to those, and I suppose they were interesting, but I refused to go because I knew that they were Chinese people, primarily Falun Gong, that had been killed by the Chinese government for their religious beliefs, and then their bodies put on display. So I refused to go to that for that reason. Horrible things like that. And of course we know that they're into the black marketing and regular marketing of organs, and they'll take those from people. So China is a brutal regime, but do not think that the U.S. government is not capable of doing the same thing. It is. And it's shown it time and time again. I've seen it firsthand. Not at the level, not at the amount, that China is guilty of, but those things happen. So China's been a problem for a long time, but in the past, the Chinese people as a whole, even though you had, these different warlords and emperors and things like that, China basically in its past was pretty docile for the most part. It didn't really have any expansionist ideas. It didn't want to rule the world. It kind of, even the ugly leaders still had I don't want to say they were Buddhists, but they had kind of a Confucian philosophy, I guess you could say. That changed under Mao Zedong, and it's been really bad ever since. Now, China could always be a problem, and I'm not saying it was docile its entire history, but what I'm bringing out to you is that something happened in China that was planned and motivated. I've often talked about writings that I'm aware of, and I never cite them, and there are reasons for that. But the idea that China would become a world player and would also endanger the United States is something that's been known since the 1840s or so. And not because it was discovered, but because that was the plan, that China would be, at some point, a major player on the world stage to not only control humanity, and we're seeing that in the tech companies and in other things, but also basically, mind control, which we experience as well, but there it's even worse, and that they would become a real problem for the United States starting on the West Coast. That's where it was being planned. Now, that was before Manifest Destiny was around in that time, the 1840s or so, obviously. But, and there were already some Chinese, of course, working on the railroad subsequent to that. And that's where a lot of them came over from China. And they weren't treated very well. But the point is that it was a cheap labor source, and we've had problems with this immigration thing ever since. It's interesting how history plays out, but the point is that there was a plan to use the Chinese, particularly the Chinese government, to cause us a problem, basically to invade us economically and culturally, and then to invade us in reality. What we're seeing now, I'm not sure, is a counter to that. I'm not sure that the people in our government, in the U.S. government, are waking up to this problem, because really they're behind it. Remember, most of the problems in the world come from New York, Washington, D.C., London, and the Vatican. Most of the problems in the world come or are instigated in those. Actually, it's cooperation between those four places. So I can't really pinpoint the exact spot where the problem is, but I think you get the idea. Hello, everybody. Again, I see headlines with the voices here. Hi, Nancy. I'm a little tongue-tied this morning. It's a little different atmosphere here, and I'm a little dried out, so I probably shouldn't be drinking coffee. I had several cups of water, but it's still kind of dry in here. No, I'm not getting the coronavirus. That's not it. We'll get to the chat in a few minutes, okay? I see that there are a lot of questions there. Let me get through this first, because something did happen that I want to really concentrate on. First of all, how does the coronavirus link into all this? Well, I'm not sure. I'm still seeing evidence, even though there have been some people like Professor Boyle who have said that he doesn't think it's race specific, but it depends on how you define the race. As I explained to you, there are people that will have those Asian genes and don't look Asian. I don't know how many of those people have come down with it, but it's still looking like it's primarily attacking Asians. That's not to say it can't change. Don't rest on your laurels if you're not Asian. The poor Chinese people have just been decimated by this, both by the disease and by the excuse that the Chinese government has been using to go after their dissidents. There are people that are trying to stand up for liberty. Tiananmen Square was they didn't care what the world thought, but you saw that back in the 80s, and now this is just the next step in that same direction. So the thing that I'm looking at here now is with China being a real hub for the world economy. Uh, and I'm just going to bring a scripture in here because I think it's relevant. A lot of things can cause this. It could be war. It could be disease. It could be, who knows, a catastrophic natural disaster. I don't know. But there is a scripture in the book of Revelations that talks about that the merchants of the earth will say, Babylon the great is fallen. Woe us, woe for us, Babylon the great is fallen. And as I explained yesterday, and as Mike Adams did a very good job in explaining, if you save the economy, a lot of people will get sick and die. If you try to save the people, the economy is going to fall. But eventually, that will, if you look at the numbers, eventually both things will happen and the whole thing will fall down if something really serious happens. So this could be mankind, this coronavirus, since it looks like it is man-made, it is engineered. This could be, prophecy is something where you have an either or. It's never exact. It's never, when you see a prophecy, it doesn't mean it has to happen. Nineveh is a good example. The prophecy, it was going to be destroyed, but it repented and it changed course. And so prophecy always has that way out. As a matter of fact, the Israelites in ancient times were required to give their enemy an avenue of escape, at least one. Isn't that interesting? They don't believe that anymore, but back then they did. And that's a very honorable, godly thing to do. But at any rate, so are we seeing man, we're looking at prophecy as being this edict, this thing that happens from God. But what if these things are conjured up in mankind themselves, and we're causing these things to happen? And that's really, I think, the situation here. We've had such a bloodlust hating our own kind that creating these bioweapons and all the other weapons, but bioweapons, everything, creating bioweapons to destroy our fellow human beings is absolutely horrendous. And it's kind of a judgment of sorts, and it could get out of control. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying that that's actually the case, that this isn't the thing that's going to push Babylon to fall. I don't know that, but just get all your preparations ready. So I just wanted to mention that. And I also wanted to mention, I saw, when I mentioned Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's speech the other day, some people got really upset at me and said, why are you pushing a New World Order intelligence community operative? Well, and that's true. He is those things. But some other things happened in his speech that I would like to give them to you because I think they're important. So I'm going to read this through. InfoWars has said that you can use their information, and I'd put the link on here, but you all can find it. It's called, on InfoWars, it's called Pompeo Sounds Alarm Over China's Attempt to Suppress Free Speech in America. Remember, China is what the New World Order is pushing, that type of culture, that type of domination. It's been where they've tried to move even all of our manufacturing and, well, just about everything, right? You see what Bill Gates has done, what Tim Cook has done, all those people. Well, let's read what this is about. And I know this will take a few minutes. You all could go read it for yourselves, but I want you to hear this, because if Mike Pompeo has ever said anything that's true, this is it. And I know this from having studied this before, and that this has been a long time in the making. And it could be that the Chinese government has actually destroyed itself in the process. We could be on the verge of some very big things happening here. If Trump and Barr, I'm going to talk about Barr in a few minutes. I'm still not sure he's going to do anything, but if Trump is actually successful in cleaning out, and I'm not saying he's the best guy in the world, okay? I'm not saying that. But if he's going to clean out the government here in the U.S., and if China falls apart because of what they've done to themselves, we could be on the verge of some very, very important things. Alex calls it the next step in the human voyage, right? Well, let me read this, because this will only take a couple minutes. These are some excerpts from this speech that he gave. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo warned America's governors Keep that in mind. The Chinese they've infiltrated, they've come in this country. A lot of things that you see happening in like California, New York, etc., are a result of Chinese, I don't want to say control, but influence and bribery, extortion, all those types of things to our politicians, even at the state level and lower. Well, I'll just read this. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo warned America's governors about China's attempt to influence them in foreign and economic policy matters, saying the communist government is attempting to shape U.S. policy by suppressing free speech and assessing how friendly each governor is to it. They are pushing it. It's part of the New World Order. The IC our IC, including the CIA, has been going this direction, as has the FBI, that whole apparatus. So we have to be aware of this. So anyway, I keep getting sidetracked. There was something else I was going to say, but I'm just going to read through this. Speaking at the National Governors Association meeting in Washington on Friday, Pompeo said the Chinese government has assessed every single governor on their attitude towards China with the labels friendly, hardline, or ambiguous. Quote, "They've labeled each of you friendly, hardline, or ambiguous," unquote, he said, citing a report by a Chinese-backed think tank. I'll leave out the quotes. "I'll let you decide where you think you belong. Someone in China already has. Many of you, indeed, in the report are referenced by name." Boy, that must have come out. That must have shook some people up, because if they're engaging in activities that could be considered espionage, even the governors, allowing the Chinese to obtain and control things that they shouldn't, wow. Pompeo explained how China pressures U.S. diplomats to bend to their will on foreign policy. We've seen it in Hollywood. We've seen it in our educational institutions, et cetera, et cetera. Remember, the IC, intelligence community, is a tyrannical organization, and the New World Order is, and China is the model. So it makes sense they use China to do this. Describing an example of a Chinese diplomat demanded a U.S. elected official not acknowledge Taiwan as an independent nation or even communicate with them. And remember, after the Sandy Hook thing, China said, Obama, you need to disarm the American people. And they've done it again here just recently, right? Okay. Tell me that's not interfering in our nation. You have a diplomat from China assigned here to the United States, a representative of the Chinese Communist Party in New York City, sending an official letter urging that an American elected official shouldn't exercise his right to freedom of speech, Pompeo said. Let that sink in for a minute. So here's the lesson. The lesson is the competition with China is not just a federal issue, Pompeo said. It's happening in your states with consequences for our foreign policy, for the citizens who reside in your states, and indeed for each of you. And in fact, whether you are viewed by the Communist Party of China as friendly or hardline, know that it's working you. Know that it's working the team around you. Competition with China is happening inside of your state, and it affects our capacity to perform America's vital national security functions. You get curveballs every day from all across the place, Pompeo added, but don't lose sight of the competition with China that's already present in your state. Let's all rise to the occasion and protect our security, our continent, and all that we hold dear, all of our freedoms. You need to go look at that article. It was, I'm sure you can find Pompeo's speech in other places, but go to InfoWars and get that, and you can actually hear the whole speech. It's about, I think, about 12 or 14 minutes, something like that. So I wanted to read that to you. If this coronavirus was designed by the CIA or the intelligence community, or at least with its assistance, and given to China, there's a lot of speculation about what's going on here. Was it to take down the Chinese government? I don't think so. I don't think the CIA is in that. The people that control the intelligence community, I don't think that they're in that business of taking out China. I just don't believe that. What I think probably happened is that they were going to use that in other parts of the world, which China then tried to do by not, telling people that, like the U.S., that, we have to keep accepting these Chinese nationals on these flights and things to infect our people with it. But if in fact, and so if our intelligence community was behind this and our war machine to then come back on us, if that was the design, apparently something may have gone wrong. Okay, we speculated the other day that China is just using this to cull its own population, et cetera, et cetera. It may have been that they didn't foresee this happening the way it did, because China's technology is still not as good as ours. I mean, they've done some fantastic things, but they could have really mismanaged this, and it backfired on them. I don't know. Either way, it's a problem for everyone in the long run. No matter who gets sick and who doesn't, and all that, it's still going to be a problem. So I wanted to read that from Mike Pompeo. I'm a little curious as to why he would admit this under the circumstances. I'm a little disturbed that President Trump has been praising President Xi of China, who is really a tyrant. He's really the president forever, life. Why he would be praising them, he shouldn't be. He should be coming down on China for what it's done. But at any rate, Pompeo basically did that, so that's a good thing. What his motivation is, that I can't say. We're going to have to watch and see what happens. But please go read that. I think it's very important. Okay. I got to tell a short story. You might, actually a couple of them. My wife Carol was a what they call a hired gun in the sales industry. She would be hired to go market certain high-end items, and then watch what the demographics are and who buys the product, and work up a sales pitch, things like that. She even did some television commercials. But we also had occasions where she just went to do a show for fun. We had these things called temporary tattoos. I'm not into permanent tattoos, but we did have these temporary tattoos, and we went to the I think it was called Rolling Thunder in Reno, Nevada, on an occasion, and we set up our booth. It was really great. The band was right there, and the one I remember the most was I guess it was a cover band for. Anyway, it did a lot of music, but I really liked what it did, and it was the hard rock type of stuff. And right across from us was the booth from the San Francisco chapter of the Hells Angels. Whoa, boy, that was really something. Well, the president of that chapter was a big, huge, burly-looking guy that you wouldn't want to cross. And he had the regular permanent tattoos all over him, but he came over and he said he wanted a tattoo of a barbed wire around his neck, and if I remember right, it was like 2 strands that we put on him. And actually, Carol did it. she figured it'd be better if she did it in case something went wrong, that he might not. Actually, he was a gentleman. I was really quite surprised. But at any rate, so we did that for him, and we broke up for the day, and then we came back the next morning, and his tattoo was gone. And he walks over to us, and Carol's going, "Oh my gosh, he's going to be mad. He's going to be upset, because those temporary tattoos are supposed to last for several days, if not a week. All right, they eventually wash off, but they were actually pretty good ones." But he comes over to us. And Carol says, "Oh, well, what happened to your tattoo? I'll put another one on you. I'm so sorry it came off so quickly. What happened?" And all he said was, "Rough night." That's what he said. You could just imagine what they were doing to rub that thing off. I just had to tell you that story because I thought it was kind of funny. Coming from San Francisco chapter of the Hells Angels, it was hilarious. Okay, time for a little sip of this coffee here. All right. So we talked about China and the dangers of China, how this whole thing has been orchestrated for well over a century, going on 2 centuries now. It was in the big plan. Isn't that crazy that they think that far ahead? That shows you how dangerous these people in these secret societies are and what their motivations are. I think in a lot of ways God uses their evil to educate mankind if we'll just open our minds. We can't select it. We can't go down that road, but we're given the opportunity to see this evil and rub elbows with it, come close to it and see what it's like. Then we're given the opportunity to either choose that path or to reject it. And I'm hoping that in the long run, of course, that mankind rejects it. There's a statement by several people. I don't know where it came from. It could have been a single philosopher, a single spiritual leader, I don't know. But they said that this world is the testing ground, that the evil people, this is as close they will get to heaven. And for the decent people that are trying to do the right thing, this will be as close as they get to hell. Let's hope that's the case, right? Okay, I want to bring up one other thing, and then I'll get to chat. Well, two other things. First of all, let's talk about Rudy Giuliani. I want to bring this up because this is kind of the crux of what we're waiting for. Again, this comes from Greg Rubini, and a really good source has told me, to be careful with this. But I think this is some just on the surface reporting here, so I'm going to bring this up. Apparently, Barr has established a process at the DOJ. Most of you might have seen this already. It has been in the mainstream news. Has established a process at the DOJ to introduce the information that Rudy Giuliani has gathered on the Biden's corruption in Ukraine. Wow. Now, there are a lot of attacks going on against Giuliani, against President Trump on this, saying that this is manufactured information, et cetera, but like the research and the legal maneuvers that Judicial Watch has been doing, this information from Ukraine and all that Rudy Giuliani is working on, both Judicial Watch's information and, or maybe I should say it the other way around, the information from Rudy Giuliani and from Judicial Watch should already be at DOJ. Barr would be crazy not to use that information the way it's come out. Verifying it would be very simple, but they wouldn't have to do all the background work. So, at any rate, that's another reason why I say that this hesitation by Barr and by Trump to keep putting this thing off smells bad to me. It's almost like if they are using it for politics rather than cleaning up our government, that's bad as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, be that as it may. So there's that information also that we're looking forward to, and that if the DOJ does use it, and they should, I doubt that there will be a special, well, they'd almost have to have a special prosecutor in the case, I think, at that point. Rudy Giuliani doesn't really have any governmental authority, neither does Judicial Watch, but using their information, they'd be witnesses, right? At least at the very minimum, or they could be friends of the court type of thing, submitting information. So there's no reason for that not to go forward, so let's look forward to that. And I do appreciate Mayor Rudy Giuliani doing this. I know he has some questionable contacts and experiences in his past and all that, but don't we all? Don't we all? And finally, I thought I'd bring this up. I went to a meeting on Friday night. I'm not into New Age type of ideas, and I don't know how to explain it other than that. Let me just say this: in the past, maybe even today, a lot of women are different than men, and that's a good thing. But because women engaged in their femaleness and that emotional, spiritual side that they have, and I will say this is the natural state of the woman. It's been corrupted in our present society and through time, but their natural state is one of emotional support, nurturing, healing. That's their natural way, okay? People won't like that. It's not politically correct, but unfortunately for you, that's really the way it is. That's why women are having such a hard time now, because they're trying to get away from that. They're trying to deny that that's what they are. They should be thankful that God made them that way. But at any rate, the point is that in the past, when women have used that, they've either been considered witches or those types of things, evil in some way. During the Salem witch trials, for instance, women who were able to heal people with herbs and things like that were considered witches, and look at the horrible things that were done to them. And also to get their property. That was another reason why people did what they did to them. But this also happened in historical times, way back, from way back. There's been this altercation between and rather than working together, I mean, a woman can provide these very special, talented, emotional supports, while the men are, more logical, or whatever you want to say, physical, whatever. That's really a compliment, but it's looked upon now as nefarious conduct when women in particular do this. And New Age and all that. I'm not a New Ager, but I understand the talents and the arts, I guess I could say. That's beating around the bush a little bit. No pun intended there, but. So on Friday, I had a friend of mine, a lady, who invited me to a meeting for energy work. I've never done anything like this. I've seen it on YouTube, the different, the hand movements, and the feeling of the aura, and the chakras and all that. I haven't studied it in depth, but I'm aware of these things. But I'd never been to one. The most I've done is gone to a naturopath for some cranking of the muscle joints and things like that. Not chiropractors, although I did go to one chiropractor once. Never went back. He grabbed my head and he was doing that thing. I just relaxed, and all I heard was a loud boom like a cannon. So I said, that's the end of that. But at any rate, so I was invited to this thing on Friday night, and there were men and women there. I'd say about a dozen people or so, and there was a lady there who was apparently this energy worker, and I'm going to go ahead and give you the name of I guess it's the discipline that she's in. Some of you might know what this is. It's based on the work of a guy by the name of Bradley Nelson, who said that he learned this as kind of like a cosmic download into his mind. And it sounds silly, but I just want to tell you what happened, because I would not have suspected that this had any relevance at all, or any real meat to it. So this Bradley Nelson had this download, a spiritual download, according to him, and he wrote a book called, and some of you might know what it is, The Emotion Code. Yes, you can look it up on the internet. It's called The Emotion Code. And when she first, and the people, I was the last one to do this, because I wanted to make sure. First of all, you worry about people that are that empathetic that they can do those kinds of work, because they can, if they can't see your aura, if they can look inside your soul and see what you really are, that's kind of unnerving. And this lady could, I could tell. So I kind of wanted her to get worn out. I had a tactical reason for doing this. I figured everybody else could go first, and she'd be too tired at the end to really do a really good job, right? So anyway, the people were coming up, and they were more relaxed. They went down and they came up from it, and it wasn't a vast difference, but it was a subtle relaxation, a subtle, I don't know how else to describe it. That's kind of what it was. So at any rate, my turn came, and so I, with some trepidation, went in with this lady to a little private room, and she did these things that I thought they were odd. And if you, again, read the Emotion Code, you'll say, how in the world can that work? Well, like any spiritual gift, it doesn't make sense to a lot of other people. And so the people that, I guess, who have the talents or the gifts to do some of these very special things, they do seem a little strange to those of us who don't operate in those realms. But that doesn't mean it isn't real. So I won't tell you the whole procedure that she did, but basically the idea was to go through a procedure where she has a spiritual contact. It's not channeling or anything like that. Again, it's a gift. Okay, that's what it is. It's a gift. No spirits roaming around. She wasn't getting talking to departed souls or anything like that, demons or anything. It's a spiritual gift of healing on an emotional level. And she did these certain things, asked these certain questions, and I was amazed. I mean, this lady didn't know me. As a matter of fact, I asked my friend afterwards, "Did you talk to her? Did you tell her anything about me?" She goes, "No, not a thing." She's, just like everybody else. There were a couple people there that she may have known, but by and large, no. But this lady was amazing. I won't tell you everything that happened, other than to say that she was able to determine by this process where my emotional injuries have been. And it was right on the money. Right on the money. She didn't know what exactly they were, but she was able to determine the type of injury that happened. It was and the basic time frame of my age when these things happened. And then after identifying those, she would then go through a process of kind of helping you to emotionally clean those out. What I'm trying to tell you is that I went in not really skeptical, but just kind of curious, and I came out amazed that she was as accurate as she was. Now, some people say, well, she's a professional, like fortune teller or those, because there are means by which these types of things can be falsified, a trickery, that kind of stuff. But that was not the case here. I just want you to know that's not what was happening. This was a genuine, whether the emotion code is baloney or whatever, this woman had a talent, had a gift, and it was absolutely amazing. I came away from it. It is emotional. It is, because it brought those things back. Pardon me. Whoa. Slurp that time. It brought those things back, and then she kind of like cleaned them out. The memories aren't gone. I still remember what happened at those on those incidents and at those times, but I view them differently to some extent now than I did before. So I wanted to bring that up, that those things are in the world, and maybe all these conflicts and all these things that are happening in the world, the altercations back and forth between good and evil, between the nations and all of that, maybe this isn't something that's going to happen in the future, as the book of Revelations, as you look at that. It's ongoing. And apparently these things traverse time, space, etc. And we probably are going through it all right now. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't get prepared again, and please do so. All right, I think that's important. Okay, we've been going on now for almost 40 minutes. I guess I'll jump to chat here, and we'll go from there. I'll go back to the beginning here. And it doesn't go to the beginning. I don't know why this thing does that, but anyway, let's just see here if there's anything that I need to bring up. Patrick Pearl says they've lowered the data on incubation on the coronavirus period as well. Went from 20 days, no signs of symptoms, to 14 days. Yeah. Yeah, Marine Corps Staff Sergeant. Yeah, didn't Trump call on folks to determine the cause of the outbreak to see if it was a bioweapon, which outraged the China folks? Oh, yeah. And it didn't just outrage the China folks, as I think some other people have pointed out. The biolab industry, which tries to keep quiet about itself, and of course the pharmaceutical industries are not happy that Trump would do this. So hopefully he's going to assign, I know if he's assigned people in the industry to look at it, they're going to help cover it up. And he may cover it up too. Sometimes I don't know what Trump's really thinking about. But if he's got some independent researchers looking at this, maybe we'll find that out. I don't know what the scenario was, but apparently it was somehow lifted out of a bio lab either in Canada, and that's kind of the idea now with those Chinese spies that were there, or maybe a combined effort with someone in the United States like that Harvard professor. But at any rate, yeah, he has called on to find out what the origins of that are. I don't know if they'd want to admit that. A lot of people are so dumb, they just don't realize how far our technology is. They've dumbed down the population so much. And the knowledge is in the hand of a few, and they want to keep it that way. So I don't know if we'll actually find out or not. Barr and the DOJ this is Mother Clucker 101. That's an interesting one. Barr and DOJ just fingered China for the Equifax hack. Well, that's good. Okay. So a little good is coming out, but again, there's still, Barr is not going after the people inside that have caused us all of this grief in the first place. It's like I said, I'm really worried he's going to try to save the institutions, and the people are the institution. People are policy. People are institutions. And I just hope that he doesn't let this stuff go. Pointing fingers at everywhere else, but at yourself to fix yourself, that's what Barr's doing, and I don't like it. Infinity Watch, yeah, this goes along with the whole idea of attacking the economies of the world. A pandemic is a great smokescreen to introduce a cashless society, but it's also something that can get out of control and go and actually destroy the people that are trying to change the world for themselves. In other words, the evil in the world. They could actually end up destroying themselves over this. So it can go either way. It really has to do with how mankind awakens or doesn't, right? Whether we repent of our bad. I mean, look, as Alex Jones says and some others, look at how many babies have been slaughtered in the United States. Oh, and China's been going on for years, even after they're born. And now they're trying to bring that here, like this Governor Northam, who should have been arrested for this a long time ago, keeping babies alive until they decide whether or not they're going to kill them and then, take their organs. Wow. That's him even talking about that should have gotten him arrested. I just can't believe what goes on. Okay. Yeah, Monica Beach, it wasn't real barbed wire, of course. It was a tattoo of a barbed wire, okay? Just so you know. Okay. So Barr just announced that the cyber hack was from China. Well, it doesn't surprise me. Also, the Chinese were given a way to find out personnel information of military people, federal agencies. China has, a lot of the things that have happened to us are because China has been given that information surreptitiously. The Clintons did it. Obama did it. I wouldn't doubt that others haven't done it. And of course, our intelligence community has done it as well. So they're not our friends, as I said for a long time. The intelligence community, they're not. Not saying that there aren't some good people in there, but the real control is done by evil, evil people. Yeah, China's not, this is Patrick Pearl, China's not reporting numbers properly either, not attributing deaths to coronavirus, blaming pneumonia instead. Yeah, you can have viral pneumonia and you can have bacterial pneumonia. So if people are getting these secondary infections, it doesn't mean that China would tell the truth either way, but if they were getting these secondary bacterial infections, like the pneumococcus diseases, yeah, they could say, oh, it was pneumonia, it wasn't coronavirus. So I understand what you're saying, but the proximate cause, the initial cause was the coronavirus. And yeah, no doubt they're covering that up. Linda Robinson, I like this. American ingenuity is because we are a mixed people, brilliant in many areas, mainly because of our faith in God. Things have changed in this country, it is evident. Yeah, they're trying to destroy that. The United States has, the people have been pretty good, but we've all been dumbed down. We've all been they've made sure that even if we don't want to commit evil, that the government that represents us does do the evil. The wars, all of these other things that have happened. And so because the people pick our leaders, at least we believe we are doing that, we have some responsibility for the evil that happens in our government and what our government does in the world. But we have been dumbed down. We have been removed from that process quite a bit. So I'm not sure how this is all going to work out. Maybe that doesn't make any sense. I guess I got off there. Okay. By the way, I didn't sleep very well last night. First night in a place where I haven't been before. Uh, I'm always a little. It's almost like tactical type sleep. One eye open. So I'm not quite up to par this morning. Even the coffee's not quite bringing me around. Liza Jean Williams, yeah, that's a secondary purpose. She says, might China be using the virus to cull dissidents? No doubt about it. No doubt about it at all. But it may have gotten out of control. It may have. Vox Populi, he says, Hell's Angels president probably had a beer bath. I'm not sure what that is, but I can imagine. Whatever it was, he definitely had a rough night. There's no doubt about that. Must have enjoyed every minute of it. I like that. Zavuya, I'm not sure. I've seen you on here before. You say, let's make it heaven on earth. That's the idea. That's what we're supposed to have here. But I guess these experiences of rubbing our elbows and our shoulders with evil to see what it's like is necessary for us to be able to choose heaven. Because that's really what happens. I think I've told you before, I had a friend, he says, have you ever wondered how God knows who's supposed to go to heaven? And of course, you always say, the judgment. You're going to stand in front of God and they're going to tell you this and, they're going to weigh you in the balance and all that. And his was very simple, and I think it's very true. God knows who's supposed to be in heaven because they show up. I believe that. I sincerely do. I won't go into the philosophy as to why I believe that or the things that I've seen in the. Let me turn that off here. Okay. All right. Huh. One of my moderators is taking some people out here. Thank you, because it took me a while to get through this, didn't it? So whoever took them out must have been a good reason. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate you doing it. Headlines with a Voice. I sure appreciate you being here, Nancy. I really do. Thank you so much. You're explaining some things that I'm missing for various reasons. Wow. Oh, wow. This Lisa XXX, well, whatever, boy, she must have been saying some bad stuff. He definitely threw her out, which is great. Yeah, everybody. Headlines with the Voice is talking to Deborah Johnson. Do a search on my channel on whatever your subject matter is. Nancy's most likely covered it, and I think they're talking about something specific here. But yes, that's great. T Black, I got to address this because I think you're onto something. You say, I'm so tired of fighting evil, i.e. sky stripes, the chemical spraying and all that, and trying to grow my own food. This will be my 4th year trying to get something to put up in spite of crap in the skies. Yeah, I know. And see, that's part of the problem. I've always thought that growing food was, kind of automatic. But it really is. I don't have a green thumb. I'm not very good at that. But you got to learn at least the procedure, and so you're doing that. But you're also getting some frustration because there are these other elements that are trying to stop us from doing that. And I suspect there are some places in the country that are getting doused with this stuff more than others. I have friends that are ranchers. I think I've talked about that before, and they see these things happening all the time. So all I can say is just keep trying, okay? You might have to, build yourself a greenhouse or something and grow things inside where you can control the climate a little bit better. I'm not sure. Okay. Wow. I'm looking here, and there are a whole bunch of these things done from this Lisa person who I guess either Headlines with a Voice or Liza Jean Williams knocked him out of here. Whoa. All right, let's see here. You all are talking with each other. That's great. Yeah, Bev Lower. I agree with that. People are not just good or just evil. We make choices daily, good or bad, good and bad. Yeah, no, no, I agree with that. I agree with that. But, a lot of it has to do with intent. You know, one of the real delineators is by their fruits. You know them, okay? So you even use that on yourself. If this thing is causing harm to somebody else, or if you're trying to be, put somebody else in a bad place or whatever, examine yourself. As I've often said, we see sins and wrongdoing in other people, but we shouldn't necessarily use it to judge them. Not necessarily, I'm not saying that you can't. But the real purpose is so that, again, because we're brushing up against this evil to learn what it is, to examine ourselves. And then we see this error, this sin, this bad thing in somebody else. We should immediately turn and see, is that in me? Am I seeing that because that's in me? And if you find it in there, then you have to do something about it to get rid of it. So, yeah, no, I understand. We all do good and bad. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Oh, Infinity Watch, that's nice. Says Potter's a good dude, sincere, and gives a damn. Yeah, not right all the time, of course, but yeah, and I really honestly do. I honestly do. Wow. I imagine this troll that was on here. It wouldn't surprise me. Anybody that's talking about the Chinese coronavirus and what's going on here, they're getting attacked really bad. Which tells you that the IC is behind it, and of course China is behind it because they're in cahoots with each other, and that would be Tim Cook and Bill Gates and Facebook and all of these people. I'm surprised actually YouTube hasn't taken some of my stuff down here, um, but they like keeping tabs on me because they think that I'm some kind of a they really do, honestly. I think I told you on the Bundy Ranch thing. The FBI questioned some. They never questioned me. They knew better than that, but they questioned several other people to see if I was actually the ringleader of the whole thing, which I wasn't. I was not in any kind of a planning deal or whatever, but they were sure trying to tie me into it, even to the point where they tried to set me up to be involved in some way in a minor part of planning, and that just they weren't able to do that. But they definitely tried, and then to of course blow it out of proportion. But they like keeping tabs on me, so I think that that's probably why my Twitter and my YouTube have not actually been taken down. There have been different times when things have happened where they've disturbed the transmissions or the recordings or whatever, but they haven't actually removed me. And I think it's because we're going to watch this guy, we're going to get something on him, we're going to. And I know that's probably why YouTube and Twitter haven't come down on me too terribly hard. Yeah, some Salem witchery involved abortion. No, I'm not saying all the women that were accused of witchcraft weren't. Certainly there were a few, but those types of things get out of hand quickly. Look at how the left accuses us of things. They get something and they accuse you whether it's not, or whether you've done it or not. And that's all I'm saying. Not all the women that were accused of this had done anything wrong. As a matter of fact, it was by and large, it was actually to try to help people. Stormy613 says that's the reason women don't need to be politicians. I can say that because I'm a woman. Yeah, if I said that, of course, the PC police would be on me in no time. Oilfield Trash is probably saying that this This emotion code was voodoo. If you're Christian, you know Jesus was casting out demons. He was doing good. But the scribes and Pharisees accused him of casting out demons in the name of Beelzebub. In other words, the devil was actually in Jesus, and that's what was going on. People that do good, you look at the fruits. So I'm not going to allow you to say that it's voodoo. No. There are things out there that are voodoo because you don't understand them. It's sort of like Christians calling everybody a pagan who's not Christian. In other words, pagan is somebody other than yourself. Well, you got to look at the fruits and what the purpose of what they're doing is. Okay, this was not anything evil that I went through, not even in the slightest, because there was no instruction on what to do, how I should react to it or whatever. It was just stating this happened at this age. It was in this category of emotional trauma, and here is a little process by which we can help your subconscious deal with it. Okay? No, it was not voodoo. It was not satanic in any way. It's a gift of healing. In the New Testament, it talks about the gifts of the Spirit, and the gift of healing is one of them, and there are different ways and tools to do that. So don't be a scribe and Pharisee and accuse Jesus of casting out Beelzebub's demons using Beelzebub. Not how it works. Okay, we've been going for almost an hour. I'm going to speed down through here and see if anybody has anything. It's not New Age. Okay, I've already explained that, Catherine. You want to see? That's why I said, I'm not into the New Age stuff, but there are healing arts. There are. I'm sorry. Okay, pharmacy. How many of you take drugs? Pharmaceutical drugs. Do you realize that in the New Testament it says to stay away from pharmakia? Okay, so your pharmaceuticals is actually a real form of witchcraft. There are good medicines, and then there are those that are bad for you. By their fruits you will know them. Bottom line. So you can say whatever you want. That's why I'm saying, a pagan is anybody who doesn't think the way you do. You'll accuse somebody of being a pagan because they don't think the way you do. You don't accept Jesus the way you think they should accept them or whatever. Okay? Be very careful at that. What? Is that what this person that was thrown off is doing? Oilfield Trash says, she said Roy is hung like a Jersey bull. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. I've never, as far as I remember, I've never seen a Jersey bull. I won't comment any further on that. I'll let that go. Okay. And Denise J is saying she could read you before you realized it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're almost done here. Musabi 009 Musa. Yeah. Oh no, I think we're all that way. He or she. I guess it's a he. Roy, you just answered your own question in life. You are afraid of something about yourself. Come to terms with this will unlock your spiritual freedom. Exactly, and that's what she was saying, one of the things. Oh, absolutely. Getting to really know that's why when I say you look at other people, you're examining yourself. Definitely. You're your own worst enemy. Oh, I totally agree with that. But it's not so much that I'm afraid of something. It's that a lot of stuff has happened. A lot of stuff has happened, and what I'm afraid of, basically inside of me, this lady even identified the real core thing. I think, yeah, she did identify it, and it's true. It has to do with potential, and I'll just leave it at that. Mike Guyver, I appreciate what you say, but I see you're kind of rigid. And he says, oh boy, here comes a hocus pocus, especially when it's not in the name of Jesus. So you don't really know what the name Jesus is. You really don't. You're still in the realm of personality. You need to go look at the etymology of the name. Jesus, of course, is the Greek version. And here we go again. You got me off subject, but Jesus is the Greek form of Yaakov. I'm sorry, of Yeshua. There are different ways to pronounce. Some people say Yeshua, some say Yeshua, but the point is that's the Hebrew form, and into Greek it translates into Jesus. Like I've said before, the name of James is the Greek version of the Hebrew name Yaakov. But it really has to do with what the word means, and that's why the study of the Dead Sea Scrolls and history is so important, because they use the word Yeshua a lot, and people, when they first saw that in the Dead Sea Scrolls, thought that it was talking about an individual, and it is not. Okay, it's a principle. All right, it's a principle, and the name Christ means anointed. So really, the name of Jesus Christ, if you put it back in the original language, which is Yeshua HaMashiach, what it really means is, and that's why Jesus said, you need to take my name upon you, which in those ancient times mean you have to be like me. What it really means is I am powerful when I am anointed with light. Okay? When God gave his name to Moses, and I've talked about this before, Mike, and I don't want to, you don't have to believe anything I'm saying, okay? But you need to go back and look at the languages and stop looking at the testaments through the lens of Western society and our modern age. You have to go back and look at it the way these people viewed it and the way these revelations came about, and etc. In the Old Testament, when Moses says, well, you want me to go down to the people and tell them about you. What's your name? What do I tell them your name is? Remember this? And the answer that is commonly translated is, I am that I am. Ayah, Asher, Ayah. That's in the Hebrew. Ayah, Asher, Ayah. What is the real translation of that? Jesus said we are gods, and to whom the word of God comes. The translation of I am that I am, Ayah, Asher, Ayah, is actually, get this, I will be whom I will be. Okay? And again, the scriptures talk about the gifts of healing, the gift of tongues. The gift of healing in the name of Jesus is almost more a principle than saying it about a personality. I'm not saying that personality doesn't exist. I'm saying you're missing the boat. Okay? That's all I'm going to say. And Roy came out pregnant. No. Diane Nolan, I think you're saying something lovely here. I love being a woman. Can't stand the feminist mindset. As women, we should love men opening doors for us, etc. Women need men and always will. And men need women. One of the first things it says in the book of Genesis is that it's not good for man to be alone. It's not good for us to be alone. Thank you, Diane. I appreciate that more than you know. You know, I'd love to meet some of you people. I shouldn't use this as a dating service. I'm still looking for the right lady. I've got some good lady friends, but and I'm really not. I'm not critical necessarily, but there are some qualities that I look for, and I'm not comparing them to my wife that died. Really, it's just that Carol, showed me what a real woman's like. I mean, like I told you, she was a Democrat, exactly opposite to me. But there was this chemistry between us that I'm looking for, and I don't anticipate it'll ever be duplicated. But I won't reject it if it is. But it's been hard because First of all, my background. Like I said, I should make this a dating service, but this comes up from time to time. I mean, anybody who's been around my channel knows my background. I mean, you can Google my name, you can find out about my my history. My delving into plural marriage, the situation that occurred. It's all out there. I'm not ashamed of it. It's sort of like in Shooter, when if you've seen the movie with Mark Wahlberg, Shooter, he finds out that he's been used to kill all these people and cover for corruption and all that. And somebody says, well, how do you feel about what you did? And he goes, well, I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm not ashamed either. And there's no reason to be, because you know what your own intent is. That's why I say when you see sins in other people, you look at yourself. I can honestly say that my venture into that had spiritual purposes, and I'll say that. Would I want to do it again? No thanks. No thanks. For lots of reasons. Okay? But I procreated with several wonderful women at the time, and things changed later, but and had a group of great kids. A lot of people now are killing their kids or not having kids at all, which, we're going to save the earth, ridiculous stuff. But no, and it's given me an insight into life that I wouldn't have had otherwise. But again, I hasten to add, no, I'm looking. Carol stuck it out, and she became a real example to me. I would say, Mom, don't hit me for this, okay? I would say that she she was a better example of a woman to me than even my mother was. for some intimate reasons. I mean, if you know what I mean. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the other things that she was able to teach me. I think my mom set me on the right course, but Carol was kind of like the revelation of that. Okay, so this is a tribute to her, but that doesn't mean, one of the last things she told me is Roy, I want you to find another lady. I want you to do that, because you need that. And so I've been looking. Like I've told you before, I've dated a few ladies, some very seriously, and it didn't turn out very well for reasons I don't want to get into here, because I don't need to embarrass anyone, including myself. But yeah, I am still looking. So I'd love to meet some of you people, some of you ladies on here, and guys too, but not for dating purposes, obviously, for the guys. But because I figure you're probably, by and large, of the same mindset that I am, which is necessary. It doesn't have to be an exact match, of course. You don't want that. But I've got to tell you, and I've said this before, I've reached out a couple of times on Twitter and YouTube to people, and to women. I've even met a few of them, and holy cow, oh gee, I'm afraid it didn't turn out very well. It's been very disappointing. In a group setting, it might be a little bit better, but whoa. Sarah, you're asking I've just answered it. You said a spiritual gift from who? You're born with your own gifts. Okay? There are evil gifts and there are good gifts. By their fruits you will know them. End of story. That's all you need to know. You can sit here and be judgmental on people. Remember, they attacked Jesus and said he was casting out demons by using the devil to cast them out. Okay, haven't you learned anything? Don't you read this stuff and understand what's being said? Oilfield Trash is explaining a torqued scrotum. We're not going to go there. Thanks. I guess that's what she was talking about, this one that got thrown off. That's funny. That is funny, actually. No, I don't have a... That's not the case. It's not familiar spirits, Sarah. No, people do use familiar spirits. It's. I won't say anymore. If you're going to close your mind, based upon the traditions that you've been hearing all your life, there's nothing I can do about it. You're keeping your mind and your heart closed. Jesus also talked about those who are stiff-necked, hard-hearted and stiff-necked. It was he who said, you must have an open heart and a contrite spirit. And you don't even know what that means. It means you open yourself up to things and you examine them. Yeah, we're not supposed to go after familiar spirits. Well, stop praying to God. You don't know who you're praying at. Who's answering your prayer? Who's answering your prayers? Do you really know? It's all going to be in here, ladies and gentlemen, in the end. It's all going to be in here. Okay. I'm really disappointed in some of you being so closed-minded, calling them, you know, you'll never receive a blessing if you look at things like this. You might as well just cast your life away because you're wasting it with your preconceived notions and your trite statements that somebody else has told you to say. I feel bad for you. I do. Use discernment, Vince. Okay. See that, ladies and gentlemen. You don't understand what you've been read. Some of you are reciting things that your preachers, your religious leaders are telling you, and they're the ones that guide you away from the truth. Jesus said, don't cast your pearls before swine because they'll turn and rend you. What are you doing? Vince Palermo, what are you doing? And the other lady I just said, I give you a pearl. Are you responding, showing me that you're swine? Is that what you're doing here? Have I erred again by casting a pearl out that did something good for me, and you're going to try to put it down? Are you that lost? Are you that afraid? Are you that gullible? All right, I guess we're done. That kind of thing discourages me because it's the reason why this world is in so much trouble. All right. Okay. Somebody mentioned the big red one here. I was going to use an analogy of how, and I'll end on this. People get upset that I'm very hard on Trump because I don't see his rhetoric matching what's happening in reality, and I see some real basic problems in his moral compass that he doesn't even understand the Constitution when he should better than anybody else. But people get upset at me for pushing on him the way I do. Let me bring out something. We're in a war. We're in a battle. He's not our sovereign king. He's our employee, okay? As are all our elected representatives. And in fact, the entire government is supposed to be our servant, not our master. If you saw the movie The Big Red One, sometimes you have to do things to people that you don't like. Let me rephrase that. You have to make people do things that they don't like, especially if you've hired them to do a job for you. If you hire, I'm going to get to the Big Red One in a minute. If you hire somebody to come in and do electrical work and they screw it up, you're going to hold them accountable for it. And they can have all the excuses in the world. They misunderstood the plans. They got everything, whatever their excuse is. I don't care. You didn't do the job right. Okay? In the Big Red One, if you remember, it's about D-Day. It's about 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One, storming the beaches of Normandy. And Mark Hamill is who played in Star Wars as Luke Skywalker. Mark Hamill is an infantryman, and Lee Marvin is his sergeant. Do you all remember this? Well, they're on the beach, and I don't remember if it was Mark Hamill that he said that Lee Marvin said this to, but I know he was there in the scene. They didn't want to move forward, and Lee Marvin is the leader, and he's got to get these guys going. And he says to them, "If you don't go, I'll shoot you myself." That's the extreme. But that's how we, and I'm not saying to shoot Trump. What I'm saying is that you have to be willing to call it out when somebody's not doing their job. Okay? Yeah, Patrick Pearl, we need to hold our leaders accountable. That said, with Trump, he needs to do things little different as the deep state has the systems locked against him. That's not an excuse. Not 3 years in. That was understandable in his first 6 months, but not now. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. So, okay, that's all I'll say. Didn't mean to turn this into a dating session too, but like I said, I haven't had a lot of success meeting people off of YouTube or Twitter. It's been actually very discouraging. Sometimes I think, gee, is that my audience out there? Is that how these people really are? And I don't think so. It's just that, just hasn't quite worked out that way. All right. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and we'll talk to you again later. Keep track of what's happening. Hopefully there'll be some arrests this week. I'm not sure they're going to be, or in the next couple of weeks, but it would be nice to see it. As you all know, I would certainly like that, and I think some of you would too. But let's keep reality in and watch what's happening, and I'll be back with you in a few days, if not sooner. All right. Thanks again for coming out here for now.